Hey friends, welcome back to our channel. Today, we discover the top 10 most corrupt states in America 2024. From coast to coast, corruption can be found in every level of government, undermining the very fabric of our democracy. But some states stand out for their egregious abuses of power, cronyism, and outright criminal activity. In this video, we'll count down the top 10 states where corruption reigns supreme, where public officials prioritize personal gain over public service, and where the system is rigged against the people. From bribery and embezzlement to voter fraud and gerrymandering, we'll shine a light on the dark underbelly of American politics. Join us as we name and shame the most corrupt states in the Union and explore the consequences of unchecked corruption on our society. To subscribe to our channel and stay updated with more insightful content like this, simply click the subscribe button below the video. Join our community and never miss out on our latest uploads. Let's delve deeper into the top 10 most corrupt states in America, 2024, 10 New Jersey. New Jersey's inclusion on corruption lists stems from a combination of historical scandals and ongoing concerns. Media outlets often cite past incidents of bribery and pay-to-play schemes involving public officials. The state's campaign finance regulations and lobbying rules are also viewed as less restrictive compared to other regions, potentially creating loopholes for undue influence. However, it's crucial to note that perception isn't always indicative of reality. New Jersey has implemented reforms to strengthen its legal framework, and there haven't been any large-scale corruption scandals in recent years. Despite these efforts, the taint of past actions can linger, making it an ongoing challenge for the state to fully shed its reputation. 9. Virginia. Virginia's reputation for corruption is multifaceted. While the state generally enjoys a positive image, some areas raise concerns. One issue is campaign finance, with looser regulations compared to other states. This can lead to a perception of greater influence by wealthy donors on elected officials. Additionally, historical scandals involving local government officials and a 2019 case against a former public transportation official for bid rigging tarnish the state's image. However, Virginia is actively working to improve transparency. Recent efforts include a focus on ethics reform and increased oversight of lobbying activities. Whether these measures are enough to fully change perceptions remains to be seen. 8. Pennsylvania. Pennsylvania's reputation for corruption is linked to a history of high-profile scandals involving public officials. These cases, often involving bribery and misuse of funds, have eroded public trust. Additionally, the state's legislative processes can be complex and opaque, creating an environment where special interests may hold undue influence. Campaign finance laws also raise concerns, with limitations seen as less strict than in other areas. This can lead to a perception that wealthy donors hold excessive sway over elected officials. While Pennsylvania has taken steps towards reform, such as stricter ethics rules and increased transparency measures, the road to regaining full public confidence remains long. The effectiveness of these reforms will likely determine if the state can shed its reputation for corruption in the coming years. 7. Ohio. Ohio's inclusion on corruption lists stems from a combination of past scandals and lingering concerns. The state has seen its fair share of political controversies, including bribery cases involving elected officials and public contracts. Campaign finance regulations have also been criticized for allowing large donations from special interests, potentially influencing policy decisions. While these issues have garnered negative attention, Ohio has taken steps towards reform. Increased transparency measures and stricter ethics rules aim to rebuild public trust. However, the effectiveness of these reforms and the long shadow cast by past actions make it an ongoing challenge for Ohio to completely shake off its reputation for corruption. Regaining public confidence will likely depend on a sustained commitment to ethical practices and a demonstrable shift in political culture. 6. Florida. Florida's reputation for corruption is multifaceted. The state has been dogged by scandals involving public officials, including accusations of bribery, misuse of funds, and pay-to-play schemes. These incidents have eroded public trust and created a perception that some powerful interests can unduly influence politics. Campaign finance laws, with contribution limits seen as less strict than in other states, contribute to this concern. However, Florida has taken steps to address these issues. Increased transparency measures and reforms aimed at strengthening ethics regulations are positive developments. Regaining public confidence will depend on the effectiveness of these reforms and a continued commitment to holding officials accountable. Only time will tell if Florida can fully shed its reputation as a state susceptible to corruption. 5. Texas. Texas's inclusion on corruption watch lists often hinges on its campaign finance system and the influence of special interests. The state permits hefty individual contributions to political campaigns, sparking concerns about wealthy donors holding disproportionate sway over elected officials. This, along with the perceived lack of transparency in lobbying activities, can create an environment where special interests potentially hold undue influence on policy decisions. While Texas hasn't been entangled in any major scandals recently, these lingering issues prevent it from completely shedding the perception of being susceptible to corruption. Regaining public trust likely depends on reforms that address campaign finance structures and increase transparency in lobbying activities. For New York. New York frequently tops lists of corrupt states due to a confluence of historical and ongoing issues. The state has a long history of high-profile scandals involving public officials, with cases of bribery, fraud, and abuse of power tarnishing its reputation. Adding to this is the complex and insular nature of Albany, the state capital, which can create a lack of public scrutiny. Additionally, New York's campaign finance system allows for loopholes like LLC donations exceeding individual limits, further fueling concerns about undue influence by special interests. While New York has implemented reforms to address transparency and ethics, the sheer number of past scandals and the perception of a closed system in Albany make it an ongoing challenge to fully erase the stain of corruption. 3. California. California's inclusion on corruption lists is a complex issue. While the state boasts a strong economy and innovation, concerns linger about potential conflicts of interest and the influence of money in politics. Critics point to a pay-to-play culture, where campaign contributions from special interests may influence policy decisions. Additionally, the sheer size and complexity of the state government can create a lack of transparency, making it difficult for the public to track the flow of money and hold officials accountable. Recent accusations, like the alleged exemption in a minimum wage law for a donor's business, further fuel the perception of corruption. California has implemented reforms aimed at increasing transparency and ethics standards. However, the effectiveness of these measures and the deeply entrenched practices within the political system make it an ongoing struggle to fully address corruption concerns. 2. Louisiana. Louisiana holds a notorious reputation for corruption, rooted in a combination of historical factors and ongoing concerns. The state's political culture, often described as pay-to-play, has a long history of tolerating bribery, kickbacks, and misuse of public funds. This culture is perpetuated by weak campaign finance laws and a lack of transparency in government dealings. Furthermore, Louisiana faces a high rate of corruption convictions per capita, reflecting a systemic issue. While federal intervention has led to some high-profile arrests, the ingrained nature of corruption and a complex web of patronage politics make it a persistent challenge. Efforts at reform, including stricter ethics codes and increased oversight, are underway, but regaining public trust requires a sustained commitment to dismantling a deeply entrenched system. 1. Illinois. Illinois' reputation for corruption is perhaps the most well-known in the U.S. This stems from a long history of scandals involving public officials, with cases of bribery, embezzlement, and patronage politics tainting the state's image. These issues are compounded by loopholes in campaign finance laws, allowing wealthy donors and special interests to potentially exert undue influence. Furthermore, a culture of clout thrives, where political connections hold significant power. This lack of transparency and accountability fosters an environment ripe for corruption. While Illinois has undertaken reforms, such as creating independent ethics commissions and increasing campaign finance disclosure, the road to regaining public trust is long. The effectiveness of these measures and continued vigilance will determine if Illinois can truly shed its reputation as one of the most corrupt states.